Hi, I'm Ron Nutter, and welcome to another edition of Tech Bites with Ron Nutter. This time I'm going to show you the first part of what I'm calling the case study for setting up the 3 dumb routers. And that starts now. In one of the last videos that I did, we talked a little bit, and let's switch over to the screen. That diagram should look pretty familiar to you. Now, at this point, we're dealing with the internet, and just to keep things simple, I'm going straight to my core router. I will be putting this in line shortly. I'm just trying to do this in baby steps because I'm making quite a few changes. Now, the core router, I went with something a little bit different. And there were 2 options I looked at. One of my connections is Google Fiber. So I had to look at some things differently because Google does some things different on the connection that comes to either the home or the office. So I had to take account for that. So it came down to 2 options I was looking at because I wanted something that was going to be rugged, secure, and was not going to be something I had to worry about being discontinued from support anytime soon. So it came down to 2 options. The EdgeRouter X and we'll go up here to get a better picture, the EdgeRouter Lite. Now let's go over here and get the better picture. They look almost the same, and there are a few differences. One, that's what stood out to me. Now, this only has 3 ports. Okay, big deal. Shouldn't be a concern because we're only talking a WAN and 2 downstreams. Well, but then you have a problem. You've maxed out it in case you want to do something special. You need to bypass things because you're testing something. So the other thing, and this didn't come out until after I'd already gotten it, the EdgeRouter X is one of those unique devices that's more than just a router. It has a dedicated chip on it. I'm not sure if ASIC's the right term or not, but it has a chip where this can actually function like a true switch. So it can handle the higher speeds. It can handle doing a lot more than potentially the EdgeRouter Lite would be. Now, I have both these devices. I went and got both these off Amazon. I'm looking to put this one probably on my slower speed connection because I'm going to have some things there that I'm going to do some of my testing there, but my main production network is going to be Google Fiber, and that is going to be the one it's put in place right now. I like it for several reasons. A, it's a metal case. You've got 1 port that will be the WAN port. The other 4 will be LAN ports. You can, oh, by the way, did I mention it was a metal case? That's one of my big deals. I really like that. And I've had this running for several days. It's gotten a little warm, but given the fact of what it's doing and there's no fan, I'm not concerned about that because that's, let's face it, things will get warm to some degree. Now, Ubiquiti has a little bit of a reputation for being, maybe not the most intuitive to configure. And if you're used to mainly Linksys and Netgears, okay, I can see where that's coming from. But especially if you're going into Google Fiber, and even if you're not, it would get you pretty close. There is a great website I found. Steve Jenkins is the gentleman's name, and I have been really impressed. He walks you through the steps. I'm going to scroll up here a little bit. And literally, if you have dealt with Telnet or SSH a little bit, and even if not, you probably can get this up and running because he has several pre-built configurations, one for the EdgeRouter Lite, which I'm going to be trying out, one for the EdgeRouter X, which is that little 5-port box that I showed you, and then EdgeRouter PoE, I don't have one, but that's basically if you're feeding it power over Ethernet, which is way beyond what I'm going to be doing at this point. But it literally walks you through what to do. I mean, Steve spent a lot of time on this, and I'd love to thank him personally because this is really, I got it up and running in, it's about 10 minutes. Because you'll want to go through and it walks you through the whole process. Get the latest firmware on there. Put the Do a hardware reset on it. Just that way it clears everything out except for the firmware you just loaded. The commands, you don't have to know anything to get this up and running, at least over Google Fiber, and there'll be a minor change because you're doing a trunked or a sub interface to get Google Fiber to work correctly. But it literally comes up. You will start out with a 192.168.1.1 range. Now, I changed that, but that goes back to my design where I was going to have 10.0.0 up here at the core, and then behind the secure network, where the laptops and the other stuff is, that was going to be 10.0.2, and IoT was going to be 10.0.1. I like that addressing a little bit better, and part of it's I'm lazy. I like typing less. So, and having worked on corporate networks before, you will see a 10 dot address quite a bit, and it's just where my level of comfort was. Now, when you get this up and running, and it literally is, he walks you through the steps, whether you're a Mac or a Windows person. If you are Windows and you're running Windows 10, you're going to need to get some sort of SSH or PuTTY client. I mean, not Telnet client. PuTTY is a good one. It's free. It's open source. I've used it for years. There's others out there, but that's the easy one to grab. So this literally, it walks you through step by step. And if you've not dealt with Linux, don't let that keep you from looking at this, because it literally, you log in, the default, he tells you the default credentials, which, by the way, you should change once you get this up and running. Gives you the commands. Now, this one here, the set NOAI, is very important. It keeps it from doing a bunch of auto-indenting, which would mess up the configuration, because it's using something like very close to an XML file to do this. Not quite, but it's a very structured file, so you don't want VI, the editor in Linux, making other things for you. And it literally walks you through, just take this step by step, reboot, and you're up and running. Now, granted, this is targeted toward Google Fiber, but even if you don't have that, it's just a matter of, you would delete the sub interface, address it on the main interface, which would be Ethernet 0, and I fully expect that to come up and running. I'm going to be testing this here within the next few weeks, because when I've got some more videos ahead of where I can get the time to do that, but it literally walks you through. So he tells you some things, especially if you're Google TV, and that you'll need to know about, but not a big deal. This is the management interface that you get, and it may seem overwhelming, but this is very close to what you see if you had a commercial router. Now, when you get in under the hood, and I encourage you to really, get in at a console level and play around. There's a lot of good documentation on Ubiquiti's website. So if you're not familiar with command line, that's a good place to start building up your skills. Now, it tells you in real time what you've got coming in for transmit traffic, receive traffic, shows you by interface. It's an impressive device. Now, this is showing the EdgeRouter Lite here, but I've got the EdgeRouter X, and it's impressive. If you want to change some things, such as the IP address range and so on, don't do that just yet. Get comfortable with this, because you're going to see a lot of things out there. And I got bit by one because I was rushing. The first time I did it by the numbers, and it worked fine. And I'm looking at a possible QoS problem. I'm not sure if it's QoS yet. So I went and reinitialized the router, put the configuration back on, went through one step that I skipped, but then it suddenly quit giving out DHCP. Well, if you go back to my original configuration, I'm going to have DHCP turned off in here. Part of it's going to save you 30 seconds to a minute if things are happening to reboot, come up. And it's just one more thing that I really don't think you need back here, because at most there'll be 2 to 3 devices back here. It'll be your secure network, your IoT network, and if you end up putting a honeypot that we'll be talking about later on down the road, this, I don't really think you'll need DHCP. If you want to leave it on, I've got mine on right now, but I have flipped over to static to see if there are some differences. But this is very impressive. It's, well, I don't easily impress, and this one has gotten my attention. So I've got the links in the video for the EdgeRouter X. That's the one I'm going to put on my Google Fiber connection because I've got gig fiber coming in. And from what I read about the differences between the EdgeRouter Lite and the EdgeRouter X, EdgeRouter X is where I think I'm going to get the better performance. I've got the EdgeRouter Lite, and I'm going to give it a try as well. But you've got some options. And with what I did on the design, and let's flip over here to this, you don't need wireless up here. In fact, you really don't want it. Now, if you end up going with something, then you're going to need to remember to turn it off. So I looked at it this way it's about $50 US for the Ubiquiti EdgeRouter X. Well, that's about what I was going to spend for a halfway decent router, possibly more. I've already spent more on one of them. And so I went, okay, I can do that, or I can have something that's really hardened. And when I mean hardened, I mean secure, because as I dug through the EdgeRouter X, it is built at least in part on the Debian Linux distribution. And if you've not heard of Debian, do some reading on that one, because it is one of the better known, better secure Linux distributions. I've never heard of Linux being hacked. I mean, I'm sort of Debian being compromised. I'm impressed that Ubiquiti went that route. And I had to do some digging to find that out. I was going into the configuration and as I scroll down through the bottom, I saw references to Debian. So you can do some of the configurations with Ubiquiti through the GUI. Some will probably be easier in command line. And I'm an old Cisco ASA firewall jockey, so I'm used to dealing in command line. But I'm trying to look at GUI because some of the newer products come out are GUI based. And I've talked to some of the support engineers at Cisco, and they're even saying the newer stuff coming out, even the people who wrote it aren't doing command line, because you get one little space out of place, it can drive the thing nuts. So I'm trying to keep an open mind with it. So this is where I've gone with my core router. I'm kind of ringing out the device that's going to be my secure router. Haven't found one yet that I really like for the IoT router. And I may take the one I've got for my secure router, make it the IoT router, and then bump up to something a little more full featured. Because one of the things that we're going to be talking about is setting up a guest network. Whether you want to have one or not, there's several things we need to talk about, and that's going to be in yet another video. So you've heard me talking before. I'm within probably a week now, hopefully a little bit less, of releasing this book out. I've already got one of the proofs back in. I've got another one shipping out. Should be here toward about another 3 or 4 days based on what UPS is showing on tracking. So it's going to go into more details than what I have in the videos, and it's going to have some things that I don't have in the videos because I was trying to add content in both places. So as you go through this, please reach out to me with any questions. I'm already working on the second volume because I had to cut the content off at some point in order to get the book out. And the other book may be out by the end of the year, maybe this time next year. Right now I haven't set a deadline because I'm simply trying to get it formatted and get the content into the way I want. So this is something that I really hope it helps you. From the number of you who've been subscribing to the channel and asking me questions, apparently I'm going down a path that you're interested in as well. So please, if you have any questions, reach out to me. If you've got a particular product you're thinking about putting on your IoT/home network, would like my opinion of it, I'd be glad to give it to you. If you're running into some problems with this, I can't really do tech support full time, but maybe I've seen some things that might get you pointed in the right direction. And just take it one step at a time. I know this can seem overwhelming, and I started to get a little bit overwhelmed when I first got into the Ubiquiti EdgeRouter X. But once I kind of got my legs back under me, it's really an impressive product. So whether you do the EdgeRouter Lite or the EdgeRouter X, right now I'm looking very serious at probably the EdgeRouter X being the way I may end up going. But it's, you know, I'm looking at both options because I'm always going to have my IoT and secure networks in a state of flux with things that I'm doing. So I always enjoy kind of kicking the tires and experimenting with things. I've drug on long enough. You've gotten a sense for where I'm looking at this, where, you know, basically what I drew out that I was suggesting for it, and I'm going through this whole process myself. So we'll be getting next into probably the secure router, going, you know, then eventually the IoT, and then we'll probably come back and visit Mr. Honeypot or Ms. Honeypot, depending on how your thoughts are, because I always like having a little bit of extra, not protection's not the right word, but have something out there that's watching for things just to let me know that something doesn't look quite right. Question was raised to me about double natting, and I'm not a fan of double natting, but what I've done to get around that is, if you notice in the drawing, I'm using different IP ranges. Now, I did see where on one of the routers that I'm looking at, I could turn off the firewall, but yet keep it in routed mode. Well, the whole idea behind this premise is to have multiple firewalls present. So far, I haven't found an issue with double natting, and I think part of it I'm avoiding that is because they're using different IP ranges at each major point in the network. So, but we'll be revisiting that more as we go on. Thank you for your time in watching this video, and for those of you who have subscribed to the channel, thank you. Thank you. You don't know what that means to me. If you haven't subscribed yet, or you know somebody who's thinking about doing, or may already have some IoT devices on their home network and is looking maybe to do things a little differently, putting more protection in place, please let them know about my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button. And supposedly now YouTube has fixed the notifications issue. So if you'll click on that little bell icon and you select to what level you get notified as I come out with videos, because I'm trying to do about 2 to 3 a week. And I've still got to have time to research things. So that's why I'm not going to do any more than that. And sometimes it may only be 1. But, you know, 1 step at a time. Again, thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you again soon.